Hello, everyone, and welcome to Caregiving Gen X Style. I'm Steve Mullen.
And I'm Jennifer Mullen.
Caregiving, unfortunately, can create some family conflict, particularly when it comes to siblings. In many cases, one sibling will take total control of the caregiving duties, and the other one will take a back seat. In other cases, like in Jennifer's family, siblings will share the duties equally. But there are a lot of cases where siblings do not agree on how things should be done. In this episode, we were going to have a guest who will talk about his own experience with disputes over caregiving. But first, Jennifer, how's your mom?
My mom's doing great.
Great.
Actually, we just...
We're back to that again.
Yep. We just finished up the Thanksgiving holiday. So she was over here for our normal Thanksgiving celebration, which was great. My brother and his husband and our son. Unfortunately, we did not have our daughter.
We did
the nurse,
not.
The caregiver.
Yes.
The paid caregiver.
Yes.
Was not with us. But mom was here. It was great. Complete with time on hashtag Mullendeckle. Mm-hmm. Have we talked about that on the show before?
Of course we have.
Hashtag
multiple times.
Okay. So Gagi was out there, covered up in a blanket. It was a little chilly.
Of course.
Enjoying a beverage of some Prosecco because our guest here who is with us at the dining room table was a little concerned that she did not have an adult beverage to drink, but she did, at least a small one. Mm-hmm. So that was good. And then we did have Hannah home briefly on Sunday. So before Jackson went back to school, we were able to decorate the tree and we had mom come over for that.
Which is far earlier than usual.
Far earlier.
Yeah,
but
we're usually
they
late.
Made us.
Yeah, but Hannah said, well, I want to get the Christmas tree done and Jackson's not going to be home for 2 weeks. And we realized that she was absolutely right because it was probably going to be, like the 19th he's home.
Yeah.
So.
But it was great. We brought my mom over and we said, we'll decorate the tree. And she swears that she had never seen Elf.
The movie.
So we decided to watch Elf.
And then?
She slept through
about a third of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really think it was her.
Not her thing.
When we started watching it, I was like, yeah, Gagi's 84.
I think
Will
it was too
Ferrell,
silly for her.
Yes, Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
Like, really not the target audience.
No.
But we enjoyed having her here with us. So that was good. Yeah. So yeah, that was good. We got into the holiday spirit.
Good.
So how's your mom, Steve?
She is doing well. Everything's just fine. I do have a bit of a retraction from the last episode.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did we make a mistake?
Sort of.
Okay.
It'll all be explained. So you may recall, if you listened to the last episode, that I talked about an exchange between the community relations director at her assisted living and my mother. Well, it turns out we did not have all of the information.
Uh-oh.
I was informed by the community relations director, who actually listens to the podcast. I didn't realize he listened as much as he actually does. I think one of the things that I said, she is going to be doing kind of a welcome wagon kind of thing there. And she had some ideas, lots and lots and lots of ideas that she had written down.
Right.
What I found out later was that she had cornered him and she had not mentioned that she had these ideas written down already. And the reason he kind of pushed back a little bit is he didn't want her to feel like she had to do his job for him.
Okay.
And that makes perfect sense.
That does make perfect sense. I definitely thought it was a shame that maybe he didn't engage her a little bit more. There she was ready to go with all these ideas.
Literally, he told me, he said, I just didn't want her to feel like she was doing a lazy guy's job.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm going to do it, I swear. But I didn't realize she had these plans already, or I would have just asked for them.
Which now, as you're saying this, and I love my mother-in-law, but she does sometimes start conversations kind of like in the middle.
Yes.
And I know in her head, she's had a whole beginning part to the conversation.
Yeah.
So maybe
I do that too, though.
Oh,
I do that too. It's a family trait.
Honey, I've been married to you for almost 30 years, and I am well aware that you do that.
That conversation made more sense in my head when I got it started.
Right. I think it's very possible that in her head, she had the first half of the conversation before she opened her mouth to him.
Absolutely.
So what have we learned from this then?
We have learned a lesson.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before, not on the show, I don't think, but between the two of us. When it comes to information that you get from your elderly loved one, trust, but verify before doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And I should have probably verified this information before talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah, I think the way that
by the way, I think, I've talked to the community relations. We're fine. He wasn't completely offended.
Okay, good.
But yes, he wanted to just clarify.
We would never want to do that. And I know I was a little disappointed for her that maybe she had been put off a little bit. So
and he's a great guy. It's a great place to live.
Yes.
Everything's, we just love that place. So
Well, it reminds me a little bit, we've talked about it before with when you send your kids off to kindergarten, and I'll never forget this, right? Hannah goes off to kindergarten, and one of the first things we learn about sending your kid to school, especially at the young age, when the teacher said something like, I promise to only believe 50% of what your child tells me if you promise to only believe 50% of what they tell you.
Actually, that was her fifth grade teacher.
Whatever.
But anyway.
Was it really? All the way in the fifth grade?
It was her fifth grade teacher.
Anyway, same thing.
Same thing. All right, so let's get started here. So as we mentioned in the intro, it's an unfortunate fact that sometimes siblings cannot agree on what should be done with elderly parents. Joining us now in studio, which is to say our dining room table, which, by the way, I posted a picture on our Facebook page.
Might be
it
a
is
little
currently covered with Jennifer's puzzle.
Well, I mean,
so we're back to that because it's a little too cold to go out.
It's cold outside, and so it is my entertainment inside, and this is the only place to do it.
Yes. So our studio is covered with a jigsaw puzzle right now.
Fine. It still works.
But anyway, joining us at our dining room table is someone who has an amount of experience when it comes to this problem, and he's actually our next door neighbor. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to finally have you here. I know we've been talking about this for a long time
on the back deck.
And it's not like we don't see you regularly on the back deck, but finally we're sitting down recording this. So it's awesome.
I've enjoyed Mullen Deck.
Yeah.
First off,
I mean, what's not to love, right?
Exactly.
Corey?
Exactly. It's an experience that everyone should have. But please, people, don't just show up at our house. But first off, Corey, how are your mom and dad?
They're doing very well, thank you. I talked to them this past Thanksgiving holiday. Even got a text from my mom last night thanking me for cooking dinner and everything. So they're doing very well.
And your father is having some memory issues, is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately, he is having some memory issues. We did have a fun time playing dominoes the other day.
Okay.
But you did see my mom helping him to say what number he needed to put down and things of that. So
yeah,
you can see that even though he can see it, it's still saying, hey, you need to put this down. Do you have this? And that kind of thing. So the short term isn't quite there, but definitely the long term comes and goes. That's as you can imagine.
Yeah,
so,
and he also has glaucoma.
Yes.
Okay.
He does have glaucoma.
Okay.
And hearing aids.
Oh my goodness. So your mom has a lot on her plate, definitely.
Definitely.
I mean, I've seen him though. I haven't seen him for a while though, but I mean, he gets around with no trouble whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
he gets around, no trouble.
Mobility is not an issue with him.
No, not whatsoever.
And your mom, she doesn't have too many troubles, right?
She did have vertigo, an issue with vertigo, so she has had a walker.
Okay.
Well, more so a cane than a walker, but she has her good days with that. So we don't have to see her with it very often. We do take advantage every now and then and make sure she has her cane, but 9 times out of 10, no, she's good to go.
Okay. So they're doing great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. So you kind of have a unique situation in that you are a twin.
Yes. You and I look more alike.
So, well,
they're fraternal twins.
That actually that might be true. Yes. If you didn't tell us that you were a twin with your brother when we met him, I'm not sure we would know that. But your brother lives further away from your parents than you do.
Yes.
So would you consider yourself the primary caregiver?
Yes. I would consider myself the primary, and secondary would probably fall to my wife, only because of proximity and things of that nature. And then my brother would be the third.
Okay.
So is he like a backup?
Yeah, he's more of a backup.
I mean, I describe it like a backup quarterback. If you don't need them, they're on the end of the bench. You don't even know they're there.
Well, he's the third string. Yeah, he's third string.
Okay.
Wife would come in.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Only because of proximity.
Right.
So it's easier for both of us to alternate. Well, I'll do something or my wife would do something in that nature.
Okay, so a little similar to, although obviously I have my one brother who lives here locally. We share a lot of things, but certainly in a pinch, if something is needed, since Gagi lives on our side of town, Steve's the one who will pop over and handle that. So,
if she, ends up on the floor or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so you're definitely the primary caregiver.
Yes.
Your lovely bride is really the backup. And then your brother's
My brother's third.
String. Okay. All right, so third string, but how often does he come to visit your parents? Like, what does that mean?
I really can't gauge how often he visits. He actually did a surprise visit this past weekend, which was a good and a bad thing. Great that he came down, which I have no problem with. I wish I'd known he had been there because I would love to have seen him. But it does help out that he does pop his head in and things of that nature. Part of his experience now is that his daughter is out west and he's going to visit some of her basketball games because she's now in playing basketball. So there's a little change in how often he can visit. He has visited before, but he sneaks in and sneaks out,
Right.
so to speak, which I don't have a problem with. Again, I still would love to see my brother.
So, like, he wouldn't think to text you and say, hey, I'm going to swing by and see mom and dad?
Literally, he said...
Literally, you have to say literally. Corey.
Right, I know. Literally, he texted my parents. He texted me Saturday to tell my mom to check her phone. And then I'm telling my mom, check your phone, because I still don't know why he did it, only to find out Monday, Tuesday, hey, I was in town. It's like, wow, okay. You told them, but you didn't tell me.
Do you think maybe he assumed that you would ask your mom, like, what is he?
No,
Was he
I would not have thought to say, hey, why is Tori texting you?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, why would I worry about that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, and just for reference, you live basically 20 minutes from
20
your
minutes,
parents.
I don't live
it's
far.
not
Right,
very
you could
far at
pop
all. You
over-
could have popped over there.
Pop over very quickly. Plus, like, I would think it would be helpful. I mean, I think about if I have a day where I'm going to pop over and see mom, I usually make sure my brother knows so that, like, if there's something that needs to be done, like, specifically that needs to be done that day, we're communicating about that.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Now, I will say this. He did pop over and he did put out some Christmas decorations for my parents.
That's
which
useful.
I would have
Okay.
done
Well,
later
that's good.
on, but I just wouldn't have done it that day.
right.
So he is somewhat involved.
He is somewhat involved.
He's not the non-existent caregiver, which is they basically may as well not exist on this earth. And even if you ask them, they don't.
Right.
So he's not at that level, anywhere near that level.
No. The biggest thing we've had to do from a caregiving standpoint, my mother had rotator cuff surgery, and that required one of us to be there more so for cooking, cleaning, helping my mom change her bandage, get her an ice pack, making sure dad ate, and that kind of thing. I took a lot of that on because I was local, but then we were supposed to switch out every now and then. But then I'm getting a phone call or a text saying, hey, I can't make it. Can you stay an extra day? And I'm like, dude, I need my break too.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
So there's a thing that I've said before when it comes to caregiving is that some people have choices. The primary really doesn't have a choice.
Right.
The secondary, the backup, whatever you want to call third string, like your brother, if they can't come down, it's like, oh, I can't come down because X.
You're
So
right.
that means you have to do it
Then I have
because
to.
you don't have a choice.
Right.
You know, and I think it's really the most troubling thing because it stinks that, you know, some people have choices.
It was definitely frustrating. I can't say anything else. It was definitely frustrating that I didn't get the break that I wanted. But again, working from home gives it some flexibility, but still you're having to make sure you take care of them and get things that, hey, have you taken your medicine? Have I fed you? And
Well, and we've talked about it before on the show. I mean, okay, so you work from home, you've got flexibility. That's really not entirely the point, though, because
Right.
when you're taking care of somebody all the time, you need a break.
You need a break,
You need
yeah.
a mental break.
yes, definitely.
And yeah, when you don't get it, that can lead to bad things.
That can lead to bad. That
Bad
can lead
moods.
to bad. Yes, anger,
And all kinds of-
snapping,
all kinds of other things,
all
yeah.
kinds of stuff. So, what are the main points of debate? So, you know, it's we've talked before about how you don't always really get along about how things should be done. What are the main points of debate?
Some of the main points of debate I would have to say would be making sure dad is taken care of first, because of his mental instability, that we have to make sure he's taking his medicine and things of that nature. I would be a little bit louder so dad could hear me, where my brother may be a little bit softer in his tone. And it's not that I'm trying to be mean or anything. I just want to make sure dad hears me.
Well, sure.
and
I mean,
will
is
be
that just a
forceful.
lack of experience
I
thing
think that's
with
a little
him?
bit of lack of experience from him, because he's not there. Granted, he will show up if, hey, the call is placed, but I'm closer. I can see them more often. Hey, I do the yard work. I do some of the cleaning in the house. I definitely do most of the cooking for him if it's available. But it's like, hey, Tori, shut up. You're not doing much of anything.
Well, and you know, people that are hard of hearing. I mean, I noticed that with our daughter, who's not a very loud person. She'll come over to visit my mother with me, and she'll talk in, you know, kind of a voice like this, and my mom can't hear a thing when she does that, and I constantly have to tell her, you know, up, volume up, got to talk louder, because she can't hear a thing you're saying.
Right.
And so, I mean, it sounds like an experience thing there.
Yeah.
for sure.
And it's
For
just
sure.
being loud so dad can hear. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to yell at him.
But have you had like situations too where you just completely are on opposite ends of, does your dad need to go to the doctor, not go to the doctor? Like those kinds of decisions?
No, we haven't had that. Mom has been very good with knowing when he has to go to the doctors and everything
And
like
you
that.
are so fortunate, by the way,
Yeah.
that they're both around,
They're both
and
around.
she's
the one
she's
that's in
fully
charge.
with it mentally.
Right. She's fully with it. And if push comes to shove, hey, we can get to the appointment if need be. She does most of the driving now. Oh, well, she pretty much, I think she does
She
all the driving.
probably should be doing all the driving.
Yeah, I think she does all the driving. He may drive to church, which is around the corner. But she is on top of his appointments. She's in the doctor's office. My dad had an issue with sciatica. I was there more so for that because he can lean on me differently than he can lean on mom.
Sure.
For pain and walking. And I could see the exercises he was doing.
She's not a big woman.
No, she's not.
No.
No. She's only shorter than me now because she started shrinking. So
My mom too. Yep. So when you've had, and it doesn't sound like you've had too many, but maybe when you've had a disagreement with your brother over like something to do with your parents, like how do you resolve that with him?
As much as I love my brother, we haven't had really a lot of heated arguments over their caregiving because we both know that we want them to be okay and do something for them. I'm like, okay, go ahead, whatever, because I know I'll be here more so than he will. Mm-hmm. If he says something, we'll go back and forth with it. But again, with me being closer, I know.
Well, yeah, so you go back and forth. Then he leaves, and you do what you want.
Then I do what I want.
Right. Well,
So-
that's one way to go.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I guess rather than having a big family blow up,
Mm-hmm.
just knowing, okay, for the couple of hours he's here, he's going to do things his way.
He's going to do his thing his way, and then I can come back and correct it afterwards.
Right.
For sure.
So a lot of times when siblings are helping to care for a parent, and maybe if there are some disagreements, or I mean, maybe not even I don't know if disagreement might even be a strong word, but differences of opinions, sometimes that can be rooted in a little bit more than just in the caregiving in the moment. Like, so do you feel that all with your brother? Like, are there any old issues maybe with you and your brother that sometimes can come into play when you're like your dynamic with your parents?
My brother when growing up, he was the sicker of the two. So he needed more of the attention and everything like that. And, every now and then I feel mom may be loving him a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I know, hey, I'm still here. It's not so much the favorite child. Right. But then somebody will whisper in my ear, hey, you're the black sheep of the family. I'm not saying it from my family, but somebody else who knows the two of us will sit there and say that. And I'm like, hey, it is what it is. I can't change that. I don't think any less of my parents in that regards, but every now and then you can see that the favoritism shows up for him. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, he just was that sick kid growing up that he got that special attention.
Right. That's just, I guess, yeah, something that just kind of falls into place, and then probably just that pattern kind of continues maybe. But, I think we've talked about this before too, right? Like you can have the frustrations, whatever they might be, but in the end, can you look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm doing exactly I'm doing what I want to do. I'm taking care of my parents. I'm doing what I want to do. And that's really the most important thing, right?
Well, and I think what happens a lot in situations like you described is, so the child, the sibling that lives a little further away, they come to visit and all kinds. Oh, wasn't it great that they came down? Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And you were there 4 times the week before.
Right.
Yeah.
That happens, I think, a lot, and it's irritating. It's really, really irritating when they get attention just for showing up once in a while, and you're there all the time. Yeah. So
not that it should be tit for tat,
it
but
shouldn't be.
It does kind of feel that way sometimes.
Yeah,
it definitely can. So, well, if you had advice for siblings who might be listening to this, like to help them, work better together, like what would you say?
One would be a dedicated schedule of when you're going to go over and help out, because when my mom had her surgery, I was there a lot, and I wanted him to be there when I needed my break, and I just couldn't get that break. And I get it. Your job may have moved you or something like that, but still, can you communicate to me before the day of and say, I can't do something? You have to understand, when your parents are that age and they still don't live in an assisted living standpoint, you got to make sure they eat.
Yeah.
And you can't everything be fast food. You may have to do some cooking and everything. Now, granted, my brother and I both can cook. I feel I'm a better cook than he is. But
I mean, we can attest to what a good cook you are when that smoker comes out.
Corey is an expert smoker. He's got the smoker out in his driveway, and I walk out in the driveway. I can smell it immediately and just go over there sniffing around what's going on.
Yeah, right. By the way, squirrel. So, Corey, how's it going today? Got anything interesting going on? Oh, do I want some barbecue? Sure.
Sure, yes. Oh, some pork butt? Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Sorry. Anyway, okay, yes. So back to what you were saying. Definitely communicating about
just eating habits and things of that nature. I think there was things that I forgot about my dad. My dad, you had to cut his sandwiches. I don't know why he just cannot sit there and eat the sandwich with his hands.
Interesting.
But you have to cut it. And then my mom peeling apples, and she doesn't like the peels on apples. I would cut the apple as is and forget about the peel. My brother was the one who would make sure the peeling was off the apple. And I'm sitting like, oh, gee whiz, here's his favorite kid doing egg on it. But my dad and the sandwich thing was weird because I picked up on that and I started cutting his sandwich for him. But then at the same time, we could be in the car with the same sandwich. There's no knife. So,
yeah,
why am I cutting the sandwich all of a sudden?
Right.
Well, you mentioned, putting a schedule together. I think that's really important. But I think, speaking to any secondary or, let's say, tertiary caregivers, which that's a big...
You just wanted to say that
word.
I'm
a big fan of that word.
Yeah,
tertiary caregivers. Yeah. For them, it's important to stick to it.
Yeah.
If you say you're going to come on, let's say, Thursday and Friday of every week or Saturday and Sunday or whatever it is, you got to do it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because those of us that are the primary, we've been struggling in it when it's a situation like after a surgery or a hospitalization or when they're in the hospital or whatever. We're there every day. And if they say they'll come down and give us a break for a couple of days, they need to actually do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we will lose our ever-loving minds if they don't. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing.
Well, and not only that, but I think the elderly person or whoever it is you're taking care of,
they're probably get a little sick of us.
Well, okay. I mean, maybe your mom gets sick of you. My mom never gets sick of me.
Of course not.
But they rely on a schedule too, right? Like
yeah,
I bet you see that with your parents.
Definitely.
Like,
they have their TV shows that they watch, and there's some shows that are recorded, and like what time is dinner and lunch or this afternoon snack. I was making sure that I would bring in some groceries for mom. I don't know if my brother ever did that because again, we're not there at the same time. But I'll bring in them some prepared foods or something I would have cooked, and just like, hey, here you go. Here's something for you. So mom doesn't have to worry about it at that time frame. And, when you need that snack, hey, just go in the refrigerator and grab a snack. If you need the dinner, here's dinner.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if you as primary caregiver have told them that secondary or third string caregiver tertiary is coming to visit, I think they count on that, right?
Yeah.
Like they get it in their head, like, oh, I'm going to see so-and-so.
With some of them, it's honest to God, it becomes a day of the week thing.
Yes.
If it's Thursday, then tertiary caregiver X is there. It really becomes a schedule, and some of them are extremely schedule oriented. My mother is, even she's got a touch of dementia, but not much.
Yeah.
But she is very, 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 very schedule oriented, and if it's going to be an every week thing that it works this way, it does throw her off a little bit if it gets screwed up. So do you think, final question, do you think there is a solution to the problem of sibling rivalries in caregiving?
That's hard to say. It really is, because you have siblings that are going to do anything and everything for their parents. I mean, any child should want to do anything and everything for their parents. Mm-hmm. It's just the matter of being flexible enough to give that time. With my brother and I, there's no age difference.
No, literally.
So,
Literally.
There's no age difference, so it's not like
Who's older?
he is by a minute.
By a minute. Okay. Wow, a minute. Wow.
Yeah.
You. I'm not saying it. Never mind.
I mean,
you came out quick.
Yeah, I really did. Okay. I really did. And it's just, you cannot change that. I would think with an older sibling, the older sibling would be more responsible. If proximity dictated, the older sibling to me would be the one who would be the primary caregiver. If the younger sibling is closer, then they're the primary caregiver. Tori and I, we're the same age, so my proximity gives me that. I would still look to him if he was the older brother, not twin, to do something, but we're the same age, and that's just how I would think.
I really do. It's all proximity.
Yeah, it's proximity,
all
definitely.
about proximity.
Yeah.
And, if one sibling lives 20 minutes away and one sibling lives 2.5 hours away, of course the one that lives 20 minutes away is going to be in charge of things. And that's not always the oldest, youngest, male, female, whatever. I mean, I think we've noticed over time, if all of the siblings, maybe there's 3 or 4 siblings they all live nearby, a lot of times the oldest one and a lot of times the oldest female takes over. Because they're just, and by the way, this is going to be a future episode talking about males and caregiving, because particularly when you're taking care of your mother, you don't understand a lot of the stuff they're dealing with.
That is true.
That's going to be a future episode. I'm working on that one. But, it ends up being the oldest female or whatever. But that's not I want to say it's a normal thing, but I mean, it's not typical anymore because people just move away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you end up with one that's nearby and one that's not. And, and it just falls naturally that way.
And see, I think part of it was seeing how my parents treated their parents, particularly my grandmothers, both paternal and maternal. My dad's mother, 4 boys lived across the street from each other.
Yeah.
So that one corner, literally there's an uncle on each corner and even one in the house with my grandmother.
Wow.
So they were all right there to take care of my grandmother. Now, my dad is here. Yeah, we can go back and forth, but there were 4 men plus their wives who could do something for my grandmother. Now, let's look at my mother's mother. I had an uncle that stayed with her in the house. Then eventually she moved to his house, and then she came and lived with us until she passed, which was for a couple of years. And my mother was the baby of that bunch. So I've been fortunate to see my parents take care of their parents.
Yeah.
And then therefore I could sit there and say, hey, I would want to be the one taking care of my parents in a similar fashion, that if they had to come in, move in with me, then so be it. My wife may put my mom in a home. My dad could probably move. My dad could definitely move in. She loves my dad. But
She'd be okay with that, but not your mother. Okay.
Love you, Mom. Okay. I'm sure Donna does too. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, fortunately, my parents and my extended family, my uncles, showed me a way of taking care of their parents once they got of an older age.
And that's true. And I think, you look back and, let's say, in days gone by, like what you were talking about, and we had that in my family too. The whole family, almost the entire family, lived in Chester, Pennsylvania. And within a matter of a 5-minute walk were my grandparents, my grandfather's younger sister, my grandfather's aunt and uncle lived right down the street, and my grandmother's sisters lived nearby too. Everybody could walk to everybody else's house and check in on each other. That's just not a thing anymore.
Right.
It's just not a thing anymore. And that's kind of what I think has led to this sibling issue here, because people just have moved away these days, and nobody, it's I mean, I'm sure there are still situations, lots of situations where people live nearby, multiple siblings live nearby, but I'm not sure it's typical anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so this is a good time too. We've definitely talked about this before. A good time to remind anybody out there who is a secondary or a backup
Or a tertiary.
Yes, tertiary caregiver. No one's saying you have to move and
Right.
live as close as the other sibling, but just check in on them every now and then. everything okay? You doing okay? Mom doing okay? Dad doing okay? You guys need anything? Can I order anything from Amazon to be delivered to their house? Like, just check in.
Well, and I think we've said before, and this is one
Or
of my...
say thank you.
Well, yeah, this is one of my favorite things to say in this show. If you are a secondary or a tertiary, it's the word of the podcast. Check in.
Is it really? Well,
check in.
it is,
I've declared it.
Okay. Yeah.
Check in with the primary.
I don't think Corey said it yet, though. Have you said it?
Tertiary.
Okay.
There you go. Now he has.
All right.
Check in with the primary and say, "Are you doing okay?" Because quite frequently we're not.
Right. Yeah.
And we're stressed out, and we're overworked, and we just are pulling our hair out.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Corey, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Coming across the side yard.
It was a long commute.
It was a long walk,
commute,
I know.
Yep.
And we really appreciate you being here. Thanks to everyone for listening to this episode. As always, if you want to get in touch with us, lots of ways to do that. You can email us at caregivinggenxstyle@gmail.com. You can send us a text, or please send us a voicemail. We love voicemails. 804-723-1221. No one will answer that phone. It goes straight to voicemail. If you think you're going to talk to me, I'm sorry, you're out of luck.
Okay.
You can also find us on Twitter. I'm not using that other name. The handle is at Gen X Caregiving. Also, we are on Blue Sky now, which is also at Gen X Caregiving. And you can find us on Facebook. Just go into the show notes and click on the link because if you're a longtime listener, we lost our page. But anyway, it's just use the link because otherwise you might end up on the other one that we never post to. We don't even have control with. So we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Good night, everyone.